Mehet Weret, the Great Flood and the Promise of Abundance. Welcome back. I'm Adeline Atlas, 11 times published author, and this is the Gods of Money series. When we think of wealth in the ancient world, it is easy to imagine gold jewelry, carved statues, and storerooms filled with grain. Yet in Egypt, the foundation of prosperity was not only material, but elemental. It was water. The Nile's flood was the difference between famine and plenty, between survival and flourishing. And at the heart of that life-giving flood stood a goddess now half forgotten, but once profoundly revered, Mehet Weret. Known as the Great Flood, or Great Cow of Heaven, she was an ancient sky goddess tied to fertility, nourishment, and abundance. Though her name eventually faded behind more famous figures like Hathor and Isis, Mehet Weret represents one of the earliest Egyptian attempts to personify prosperity itself as a divine presence. The name and its meaning. The name Mehet Weret, sometimes rendered as Mehet Uret or Mehert, translates as Great Flood or Great One Who Emerges. This title alone reveals her intimate tie to abundance. For Egyptians, the yearly flooding of the Nile was not a disaster, but a blessing. The inundation spread nutrient-rich silt across fields, transforming the desert into fertile farmland. To call a goddess the Great Flood was to acknowledge her as the source of wealth, for she embodied the very rhythm that sustained Egyptian civilization. Mehet Weret was also associated with the sky, particularly as a celestial cow. The cow, in Egyptian symbolism, was a maternal and nourishing figure, providing milk and sustenance. To imagine the heavens as a great cow was to imagine the sky itself as a source of nourishment, pouring abundance down upon the earth as rivers, rain, and fertility. Iconography and representation. Mehet Weret was typically depicted as a celestial cow, often shown with a sun disk between her horns. Sometimes she appeared as a woman with a cow's head, or as a cow emerging from the primeval waters. Her form linked heaven, earth, and water into a single image of fertility. In Egyptian cosmology, she was tied to the Nun, the primordial waters of creation. From these waters, all existence emerged, and Mehet Weret was envisioned as rising from them, carrying the solar child between her horns. In this role, she became a mother figure, nourishing the sun god himself with her milk. This cosmic motherhood reinforced her association with sustenance. Just as she fed the divine, she fed the land and its people. Role in myth and religion. Though Mehet Weret never became as central as deities like Isis or Osiris, her presence can be traced in funerary texts and hymns. In the pyramid texts and later the coffin texts, she appears as a protective, nurturing force, offering milk to the deceased king as he ascends to the heavens. This act of nourishment ensured that the pharaoh could survive in the afterlife, just as her waters ensured the survival of his people in life. Her mythological role was fluid, often overlapping with Hathor, Nut, the sky goddess, and other motherly figures. Over time, Hathor absorbed many of her qualities: the celestial cow, the nourisher, the bringer of fertility. But in the earliest phases of Egyptian religion, Mehet Weret was a distinct figure, the cosmic flood that brought creation and the annual flood that brought wealth. The Nile as wealth. To understand why Mehet Weret mattered, we must remember how Egyptian prosperity worked. Unlike Mesopotamia, where rivers could be violent and unpredictable, the Nile's inundation was regular, cyclical, and life-giving. Each year, waters rose, spread silt, and retreated, leaving behind black earth so fertile that the Greeks later called Egypt the gift of the Nile. Without this flood, Egypt was barren desert. With it, Egypt became one of the most prosperous agricultural civilizations of the ancient world. Grain harvests were so abundant that Egypt was known as the breadbasket of the Mediterranean even millennia later under Roman rule. To embody this flood as a goddess was to revere the very foundation of wealth. Mehet Weret was prosperity personified, not coins or jewels, but the dependable rhythm of nature that made civilization possible. The celestial cow and the sun. Another layer of her mythology connected her directly to cosmic order. In some traditions, Mehet Weret lifted the solar bark, the boat carrying the sun god Ra, into the sky each day. She bore him between her horns, raising him from the waters of chaos. In this sense, she was not only the goddess of fertility on earth, but the one who set the cycle of time itself in motion. This image reinforced her dual identity. She sustained both cosmos and community. The rising of the sun and the rising of the Nile were two sides of the same abundance, both linked to her. Time, fertility, and wealth were not separate, but unified under her maternal presence. Connection to Hathor. Over time, many of Mehet Weret's qualities were absorbed into Hathor, the more famous goddess of love, fertility, and abundance. Hathor too was depicted as a celestial cow, mother of the sun, and nourisher of gods and men. In fact, Hathor's title as the Great One of Many Names reflects how she subsumed earlier local goddesses, including Mehet Weret. Yet the persistence of Mehet Weret's name in religious texts shows that Egyptians did not entirely forget her. She remained a figure invoked in funerary spells, associated with the sustaining milk that allowed the soul to thrive in the afterlife. Her memory lingered as the archaic but powerful personification of cosmic and earthly prosperity. Wealth as nourishment. What is striking about Mehet Weret, compared to other gods of money, is how concretely she ties wealth to nourishment. For Greeks and Romans, wealth was often imagined as gold or luck, as in Plutus or Fortuna. For Mesopotamians, it was tied to the ambition of cities, as in Inanna, Ishtar. But for Egyptians, at least in Mehet Weret's case, wealth was milk and water, fertility itself. Her iconography as a cow emphasizes this. Milk was a staple of nutrition and a potent symbol of sustenance. In funerary art, the deceased drinks from the udder of the celestial cow, sustained by her divine milk. This imagery makes prosperity not abstract, but bodily. Wealth is not only having gold, but being fed, being sustained, being made whole. Funerary and afterlife role. In the Book of the Dead and related texts, Mehet Weret appears offering milk to the dead. This act was not symbolic alone. It was seen as essential for survival in the next world. Just as grain and cattle sustained Egyptians in life, so the milk of the celestial cow sustained them in eternity. This connection reveals a profound link between prosperity and immortality in Egyptian thought. To be nourished by Mehet Weret in death was to carry abundance beyond the grave. She was not only the great flood of earthly life, but the inexhaustible flood of sustenance in the hereafter. The legacy of Mehet Weret. Although later overshadowed by Hathor and Isis, Mehet Weret's themes lived on. The annual Nile flood remained central to Egyptian wealth, and the goddess personifying it never fully disappeared. Even when her name was forgotten by the masses, her symbols survived in temple rituals and funerary practices. Her story also illustrates a broader pattern in ancient religion. Early deities tied to elemental prosperity, floods, grain, herds, often gave way to more elaborate goddesses of culture, beauty, or politics. Yet beneath the later grandeur, the memory of Mehet Weret reminds us that wealth begins with the basics: water, fertility, sustenance. Mehet Weret may not have commanded the grandeur of Isis or the fame of Hathor, but she represents one of the oldest and most fundamental ways humans imagined wealth. She was the Nile's flood, the milk of the cow, the sky that poured abundance onto earth. She was the one who raised the sun and filled the fields. For the Egyptians, to honor her was to acknowledge that prosperity begins with water and nourishment. Though history has obscured her name, her essence remains clear. Every time the Nile flooded and the land turned green, every time temples depicted the celestial cow offering milk to the dead, Egyptians remembered that wealth is not only measured in treasure, but in sustenance. Mehet Weret, the Great Flood, embodied this truth. She was the promise that life could flourish, that fields could yield, that communities could endure. In the grand story of gods of money, she stands as a reminder that prosperity begins not with luxury, but with fertility, nourishment, and the reliable rhythms of the earth. Welcome back. I'm Adeline Atlas, 11 times published author, and this is the Manifestation series, where we don't just talk about manifesting, we master it. Because let's be honest, manifestation has been watered down, reduced to vague quotes, mood boards, and empty promises. But you didn't come here to wish. You came here to build a reality that hits different. A reality that responds to your frequency, your language, your alignment, and your decision to stop playing small. This series is not fluff. It's physics, frequency, and fierce creative power. Inside the Manifestation series, you're going to learn how to collapse timelines, shift identities, and speak worlds into existence, just like the greatest minds in history. This isn't just about being positive. This is about being powerful. Here's what you unlock inside. Vision to Reality, the Vision Board course. You've heard about vision boards, but you've never done them like this. This is a full energetic ritual, a precision-coded map for your subconscious, designed to bridge image, frequency, and strategy. It's not arts and crafts. It's blueprinting your future in visual form and turning it into matter. Time, quantum timelines, and why time isn't real. Manifestation doesn't take time. It takes alignment. In this module, I'll show you how time is just a mirror of energy and how to collapse timelines using choice, clarity, and vibration. Past, present, future, they're happening now. And when you know how to navigate time quantum style, you stop waiting and start receiving. Quantum jumping, instantly up level. Your next level life isn't years away. It's one decision away. In this training, you'll learn how to quantum jump, how to shift into a version of you that already has what you desire. This isn't fantasy. It's how high-performance creators, athletes, and spiritual masters leap beyond limits. Jump now. Land in power. Every word. The power of affirmations and spoken language. Words build worlds. In this course, I show you how to use affirmations like spell work, not just repeating empty mantras, but speaking with vibration, intention, and spiritual force. If you've ever felt like affirmations don't work, this will change everything. You'll learn to command your field, not just request from it. The greats, learning from the most exceptional minds in history. We're not the first to master this. In this legendary module, we decode the techniques, habits, and quantum genius of the world's most powerful manifestors, from ancient sages to modern icons. You'll learn how to think like the greats, move like the greats, and manifest like the greats. This isn't another feel-good series. This is a spiritual weapon, disguised as a manifestation course. It's made for leaders, cycle breakers, visionaries, and soul builders. You don't need another wish list. You need a system that teaches you how to bend reality. This is that system. So if you're ready to stop playing with potential and start creating results, welcome to your next level. The manifestation series is open now. You know what to do. Let's build what they said was impossible and make it inevitable.